Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the Topsky F7X V2 FPV goggles. Now, if you are a regular subscriber to the channel, then you will know that the F7X goggles were much anticipated to be fat shark killers, but when I reviewed them, they had multiple issues and in general, they weren't ready for consumers. Now, some people suggested that the models that were sent out to reviewers were just for testing purpose, but regardless to all the defenses that people put up against Topsky, they were released for sale and not ready, in my opinion. And as soon as I reviewed my pair of goggles, every other Google advert included the Topskys, but of course, it was a failed bit of advertising in my opinion, as there were too many issues to legitimately sell them, and the result of that was that they stopped selling them until Topsky rectified the issues. And sadly, I'm told that this series of events pretty much bankrupted Topsky, which is a real shame because I think everyone will agree that we all want them to succeed, and that may explain some of the defenses that people put up against them, which is fair enough. You see, we all want a great pair of high quality FPV goggles that are worth the money, and of course a bad review is going to skew people's opinion when it comes to future investment. But from my perspective, I can't be putting false information out there. Anyways, I got some backlash for my review of the Topskys, which I wasn't surprised about because of the amount of investment. And I think a lot of people did invest in them due to the great specs that were on paper, and people aren't going to want to hear that their investment is flawed. They're going to want to make excuses that there was some kind of miscommunication and that reviewers are being too harsh because they are spoiled by the best of the best. But I can only comment on what I have received and what was for sale at the time, and both of those two things matched up. So, here are the V2s, and let's see if they have rectified the issues that the original ones had. Now, I'm not going to go through every button press of these goggles because that has not changed. So if you're wanting to know about that, then I'll link my original review in the below, which goes into greater detail of those functions. So all I'm interested in is if they have fixed the main issues which the original one had. So here goes. My main issue with the original was the DVR. It recorded at half speed in PAL format, and it recorded a 0 kilobyte file in NTSC format. It also had an annoying blue line down the side of the recording. All of that has been rectified and fixed. That's not to say that the quality is any better than the Fat Sharks or the Omway DVR despite being in HD. In fact, I would still say that the recording is soft compared to those competitors. And I found it quite funny that people started to accuse me of being a Fat Shark salesperson because of my negative review of the Topskys, when in the past I've absolutely ripped apart Fat Shark. In fact, Fat Shark won't send me any products whatsoever, but there you go. People don't want to hear the truth sometimes. Anyways, the DVR is now usable and fixed, but yeah, the image is a little bit soft. That being said, the standard RF module produces a lot of breakup as well, as you can see in my footage. And yes, I made sure that I was on the right channel and both of the antennas had the correct polarization. In fact, I tried a few different antennas and I still got a lot of breakup when I was trying any copter. There's also no audio being recorded either, which was a problem with the original, but I always mute the audio anyway, so not a big problem for me. The next issue was the cropping on the screen. Sadly, this is the same. So NTSC sources are cropped and some of the on-screen display is missing if you're using an on-screen display. And just as before, PAL sources are much better. This still needs fixing in my opinion, but if you mainly fly in PAL, then you probably won't notice it as a problem. One of the things that interested me with the Topskys is the fact that they can switch between a 4:3 aspect ratio and 16:9. And with these V2s, that is still not an option, and the picture is stuck in 16:9, which makes it only favourable to the 16:9 CMOS cameras that are out there. Of course, you can run a 4:3 CCD camera if you aren't OCD about aspect ratios, but I am, so there you go. Next is the Diopter Fitment. None of the mouldings have changed whatsoever, so the Fat Shark diopters still fit very loosely, and they need to release their own diopters from Topsky to fix this issue. So, my V1 set had some dead pixels. I first thought this was some dirt in the optics because the marks on the screen weren't square like pixels are. However, once I took the goggles apart and completely destroyed them, don't do that, by the way, there was no dust whatsoever, and I realized that the marks I was seeing on the screen were dead pixels. These V2 goggles don't have any dead pixels, so I'm really pleased to see that. The module bay has not changed at all, which doesn't surprise me because that would mean them changing their tooling. A lot of people were excited about these goggles as they use the Fat Shark style modules, but the module bay is designed for Topsky's own module, which doesn't have diversity and it wobbles about quite a bit as well. This hasn't changed with the V2s, and I've had to add some double-sided foam tape to the RX module. Otherwise, it moves about and the video blacks out when it moves as well. So, something that I missed in my initial review of the V1s is that the goggles did not save any settings or frequencies once the goggles were powered off. So when you powered them back on, your frequencies were reset. This, unfortunately, is still the case, although if you press the channel selector up once the goggles are turned on, then it does seem to select the last frequency that you are on. So, while on the subject of the RX module, one of the main complaints was the speed of the auto scan. This doesn't seem to be much faster in my experience. If your copter's turned off, then the channels scan through pretty quickly, but the moment any video starts to transmit from your copter, then the scanning slows down a bit, which is just about as annoying as the original. Another thing that I missed in my original review is the function of the fan to defog the goggles. My friend NJ Tech picked up on this and he hilariously commented that it's like a hairdryer for your eyes, and he was completely right. The fan starts off slowly and then it picks up RPM to the point where you'd struggle to keep your eyes open. Now, I've never been a big user of these fans on any of these goggles. I always make sure that I heat them up on my forehead before flying, and then fogging never becomes an issue. The fan does seem to be just as loud as the V1s, but the airflow isn't as bad, so I can only guess that they have changed something inside the goggle to make the airflow less of an eye dryer. As I say, it wasn't a big issue for me, but others found it annoying, so it's definitely worth mentioning, and they seem to have done something about it. Another thing that seems to have changed is the material that the goggles are made out of. So users commented that there was a lot of light leakage through the material of the goggle. Now, it's always dull here, so I didn't notice it in my review. This time, the material seems to be a little bit thicker and light doesn't pass through it as easily. I think this time they have used a fully black material and then painted it red to match the original, because I'm not seeing any tape used to block any light out or any modifications like that. So I think they've changed the material. So next I want to talk about the ghosting. Now, ghosting on a LCOS device is pretty much unavoidable. Now, some trolls tried to tell me that LCOS projectors don't have any ghosting, so you're talking nonsense, it's a problem. So I should give some context here. I've spent a fair amount of time repairing projectors in my time, so I think it's safe to say that I know a fair amount how this technology works. You see, there's a lot more space in a projector than there are in these goggles, so LCOS projectors generally have 3 separate RGB sources, so RGB red, blue, green, which makes up all of the colors. Now, these goggles have a single backlight, and again, trolls live to correct me, so I'll also call it a forward light for those people that think that they're contributing in some way by correcting me. The light is situated where a normal LCD screen would be in, say, I don't know, a pair of Fat Sharks. I don't work for Fat Shark. Please don't have a go at me. So it transmits red, blue, and green light in sequence. That then shines against a 45-degree polarized semi-transparent mirror which reflects the RGB light upwards. So yes, you're actually looking at a mirror sat at 45 degrees in these goggles that has a multiple function. So the light is polarized, and that is designed to block your eyes from seeing the backlight, but of course it can't do that fully. It's just like sunglasses, how it doesn't block out all of the light. Then at the top of the goggles is the LCOS chip, so that's liquid crystal on silicon display, if you want to know what it stands for. So it's very similar to a CMOS chip in a camera, or the same as a DLP chip in a projector. So it actually doesn't produce light itself. It interacts with the backlight or forward light, the red, blue, and green light that is being reflected. And then that reflects the combined image downwards back through the 45-degree polarized lens. And then it's enlarged by a mirror at the base of the eyepiece, and then reflected back upwards into the 45-degree semi-transparent polarized mirror, and then into your eyes. So all of this multiple use of polarized light, lenses, and mirrors results in ghosting for each of the reflections that are created. And the only way to reduce this is to increase the strength of the polarization of the lens, which is what I think they have done here for the V2s, because the ghosting isn't anywhere near as bad. In fact, I couldn't notice it when flying FPV. The trade-off, of course, is that the image is slightly darker, but I couldn't notice that, and it's completely usable. So yes, they have improved the ghosting, but you will still see it slightly. Another small change is the faceplate. They have switched it out to this suede type material with the foam attached to it. The faceplate still comes off very easily, which is something that I noted on the V1s, but people said I was being too picky, so take that however you like. It's still coming off really easily for me, and I'm still finding it annoying. So the big question is, are the Topskys now worth investing in? Well, I would say that they are now usable, but they won't be replacing my Fat Sharks or Omways, because as you all know, I work for Fat Shark, and so I have to, they have to be my main goggles. I don't work for Fat Shark. I don't know why anyone would say that, man. People come up with the lamest excuses when they don't like what they hear, but this is just the truth. This is what I receive here, but there you go. Anyways, I would say that if they had released these goggles like this in the first place, then they would have been much more successful, and there would have been much less to complain about. I still like to see the Fat Shark modules being compatible with it, but if Topsky come out with their own diversity module, which is as good as the likes of, I don't know, the TrueD system, then that would solve that problem, because I don't hear anybody complaining about the built-in diversity system of the Omways. So there you go, that is my review of the Topsky V2 goggles. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get some, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.